Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, near or far. Welcome back to the Coach D podcast, where we dive into the game we love and the stories that inspire. Today, listeners, I've been excited to have a true basketball educator and mentor joining us, Coach Stevie. With years of experience developing players and impacting communities, Coach Stevie brings a wealth of knowledge, passion, and insight to the court. So get ready for an episode filled with invaluable lessons, coaching wisdom, and actionable advice for players and coaches alike. So, listeners, please give a warm welcome to Coach Stevie. Appreciate you, Coach, man. Appreciate you. Honestly, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
No worries, man. Really, really like the introduction, by the way. I don't feel I've ever been introduced like that in my whole life, but
Oh, I love that.
this is my moment, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And just before we even get started, I actually had to post it on my Instagram story because again, we was kind of talking off air, like there are a lot of things that we share just with regards to philosophies and principles. And one thing you were just highlighting, and I'm gonna do this warm up with my London elite team tomorrow, and I'm gonna tag you in it when I post it. It was something so small, but the level of detail you was discussing when it came to ball handling, they had to stay stationary. Yes, they could move their feet, but they're not allowed to turn their back to the defender. Just stuff like that. It's not like old school drills. It's quite new school. It's modern, and it's a drill that is already translating to the real game. So honestly, Coach Stevie, shouts out to you on that one, man. And just before we even get started, how was your physical and how was your mental?
So, in terms of my physical, I'm currently at the moment obviously working on that 2025 and all that. Uh, I'm looking to drop. Well, I dropped around about 8 months ago. I dropped around about 14 kg.
Wow. Okay.
I went on a program with a personal trainer and online coach. He's really, really good. Um, and I basically like was die hard at it, and it allowed me to drop that much weight. So I was really, really heavy at one point. I just let myself completely go, and I was just
Right.
busy with other stuff in life. So I'm currently looking to get down to 85 kg.
Okay.
I'm on the quest to do that. I'm probably around about 8 kg off at the moment.
Okay.
So I'm on the quest to do that. Just being consistent with my eating, being consistent
Yes.
with the water, being consistent with the gym, and that's all what it is really. And I guess whenever you've played basketball and you've kind of been that type of athlete before, I guess you never lose it.
That's true. That is very true. And just for the listeners as well, just like kind of getting a background introduction on how you started basketball as well. Like, can you share your introduction to basketball? Like how a lunchtime scrimmage turned into like a lifelong passion?
Yeah, so I was a overweight, chubby 14-year-old with very low confidence. And one day my friend turned around to me and he said, "Why don't you come and try basketball?" And at the time he played for I think it was the West Midlands under 15s regional team.
Wow.
So
Okay.
he was able to get to that level, and there was not many people in Stoke-on-Trent who had played at that level really. And
Right.
he was very, very tall, very athletic, could shoot, could dribble. Really nice guy. His name was Ross.
Shout out Russ.
So yeah, shout out Ross, definitely. And he said to me, "Come to the scrimmage at lunchtime, try it out, see how you feel. It's really, really good. It's fast paced. It's this, it's that. Like you'll get a lot of cardio from it." And I thought, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. I didn't like football. I didn't like cricket. I didn't like badminton. I didn't like any other sport. I wasn't a sporty guy, to be honest with you. I was more of I was more of like a social guy who was like a middle person who got on with everybody, and I really liked creative stuff.
Right.
Um, so I joined the session. My PE teacher ran it on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and it lasted for an hour. And I kid you not, after the session, I felt like I was absolutely dying.
Oh man,
Literally,
love
my heart
that.
was beating out my chest. But the good thing is, I was hooked from that moment.
Love that, man. Love that. See, and that's just something so key. Like, I mean, even for myself, just like, teaching PE in a school that I work at, and obviously I specialize in basketball, you really start to realize like before teaching at that school, I was already coaching kids who had already had that taste of basketball. So the passion was there. And then it was an interesting flip for me where now that I'm working in a school,
Mm.
these kids are being introduced to basketball for the very first time. So how you uh gift wrap that present is very important. Sometimes you might need to spin the ball on your finger, you might need to do a cool crossover or make a certain reference, and then they're hooked. So it's so dope just how that
Yeah.
little introduction for you got you hooked. So
Yeah.
I love that.
It was really, really good. And it goes back to what you say. You've got to recognize your group and what their motivations are. And you've got to recognize the context that you coach in. And I think
Yes.
that's a really, really important thing for a coach to be adaptable and recognize the context that you're coaching in.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very important.
Right. And what was it like transitioning from a high school player to a coach?
Wow. So that's a big loaded question. So high school player, um, I guess I was an average player. I never used to get many minutes, and I used to spend a lot of time on the bench.
Okay.
And I wasn't that good, but I worked really, really hard to get above average.
Right.
And I kind of spent a whole year working at my craft. And within that year, I lost around about 10 kg.
Wow. Okay.
In fact, I just carry the basketball around every day, and I play in the park whenever I could. And sometimes I'd be out for 7, 8 hours a day just playing basketball with my mates. So when I kind of transitioned to coaching was I was very, very young actually. And I used to play for a national league club in Stoke.
Okay.
And I joined a local league club as well.
Mm.
They had a scrimmage on, and I just did it for the extra training. And I was a I was basically approached the owner, and I said to them, "Look, you've got a bunch of younger kids, and I can see obviously you're a little bit strapped for time.
Right.
Would it be okay if I kind of came in and volunteered and helped out with the coaching?"
Okay.
And I did that from the age of 16. Um, and I was at like a stadium with started out with around about 10 kids,
Okay.
and their motivations were just as we discussed before. They just wanted to have a ball in their hands. They just wanted
Yeah.
to play games. And when it came to kind of the breakdown stuff, they were just like, "Oh my God, I lost my mind." Well, yeah, they had a very short attention span. So I guess I sort of fell into coaching early.
Okay.
Yeah, I was realistic with myself. I knew I wasn't going to be a professional player, but I loved the sport that much. I actually got into it to become a better player.
Same. That's crazy. Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I believed that if I had more knowledge of training, and if I had more knowledge of the game itself and was able to kind of teach it, I would actually know how to understand it and process it better as a player.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try what my coaches have taught me and see how it translates. And
Right.
I just hit social media and YouTube like everybody does, the main platforms, and started doing courses and speaking to other coaches about different ideas and stuff like that. And
Right.
yeah, I just got better from there, really.
And how would you say? Because it was super cool for me back in like 2017. Even just leading up to that, growing up in London, you get an idea of what I guess a London style of basketball is like, just with regards to you go to different pickup courts, you've seen a lot of athleticism, one-on-one type of stuff. And then I didn't realize until when I left London Fortunately enough, in 2017, I was the head coach for the London region, and for me, like
Wow.
making that step, I now got to see, okay, this is just London basketball. Took them to Manchester, and now I'm seeing what other coaches from different regions, what their perspective was on London basketball, which at the time was a shock for me because I didn't even realize that different regions had different styles of basketball, you know. So when you kind of compare, like, okay, London has this type of style,
Mm.
you know, the Midlands has this type of style, it was just like a eye opener for me. So for yourself, when you kind of look at the hotspots, I mean, when it comes to like Stoke on Trent, like how did growing up there like shape your basketball journey, would you say?
That's a really good question as well. So I think when I started playing as a National League player, I had my first coach, and his name was Steve Webb, and he was a very militant, autocratic coach.
Okay.
And let's just say he did things like if your lace wasn't tied, he used to take your shoe off and throw it up the court and make you go and get it.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Let's just say I would
Militant.
say him into training after that with my lace tied. But I think he was from a army background.
Right.
Well, not sort of where that kind of level of discipline and craziness came from.
Yes.
Um, he was a lot about defense. He used to do a lot of defensive drills, and he believed games and leads were won by playing really good defense. Um, and not only he didn't teach us only the techniques about the stance and all of that. He taught us how to outthink people.
Okay.
And that was kind of the main things he used to taught. He always used to talk about like body positioning, players' attributes, and how you can gain the advantage back on defense. And it doesn't matter what size you are, it doesn't matter what strength you are. It matters about your heart, your smarts, and the technique that you have. So I I kind of the team I played for in Stoke was a lot about like full court defense, and it was about like having a really smart kind of personnel. Uh,
Okay.
the other teams that were in Stoke, there was only one other local league team at the time. However, 10 years before, well, I think 8 years before I started to play for that team,
Right.
Stoke on Trent had around about 20 teams. Four.
Okay.
And we were, while I heard stories obviously from the older generation that we were one of the most known places for basketball in the Midlands. And there'd been a lot of guys who had gone out to America on scholarships and had also
Nice.
played for regional and England teams as well.
Wow.
Who were from this city. I heard we actually had an international game played in one of our local venues as well. So we many years ago we were quite big and well known for basketball, and we were quite well known because we used to win a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
What happened was coaches grew up, they had families, and they moved away, they moved abroad, they moved to different cities, and they stopped coaching, and the sport just became extinct. And I guess it's because obviously most coaches work voluntary and they can't make a living out of it. And I guess that's one of the major factors. And that's why people move on. I totally understand it.
Yeah.
There were a few left who obviously started clubs. But even then, it was a struggle for both clubs that were existing in the city when I joined as a player.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think what when I heard all these stories growing up as a basketball player, they always stuck in my head, and I
Right.
think deep down that was kind of one of the reasons I got into coaching, maybe as well.
Yes.
Sort of I didn't know it at the time, but sort of reflecting on it as an older person, it's
Yeah.
probably the reason one of the reasons why I got into coaching too. So
Right.
it completely stopped, and then when I carried on coaching, one of the National League club that I was in folded after about 2 years, um, because of lack of players. They had a men's team and they had a junior team, and it just left the local league team. And the good news is that local league team is still standing today.
Nice.
So it's been a longest standing club. And one basically, I would class one of the while the owner is one of my mentors because he was the guy who gave me my first opportunity to coach, and he got the funding for me to be able to do my level 2 as well. As a
Amazing.
one coaching, so I always shout him out.
Absolutely.
We always play against his club, because I own my own club now.
Right.
Sometimes they win because they've got senior teams. Sometimes we win because we've got senior teams. Sometimes their juniors win. Sometimes our juniors win, and it's a great local rivalry. Um, and it's really really good to see kind of what they've done and how they've kind of stood the test of time. And a lot of my former players still coach there and still play for the seniors as well. So it's just really really nice thing to see. And Stoke's a very very small community. So everybody knows everybody in basketball. It's not like London where it's absolutely massive.
Yeah.
It's a really nice thing, and it makes stuff a little bit easier. But at the same time, I say we're kind of trapped in a little island.
Okay.
Interested with limited opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, man. And you just even mentioned it there. Like, I mean, you've experienced so much and you've not just played, but you've coached at various levels. So, what would you say were like some of the key lessons you learned as a player that you carried into coaching?
I think it's my defense philosophy. I was always the guy who would have a chip on my shoulder for being short. And I was always kind of like the role player who the coach would put on to just completely lock up or limit the best player on the team.
Love that.
I took that on board, and I made it my mission to do that. And I wasn't happy
Right.
with myself if I didn't get stops. And I'd give that much energy on defense that I actually used to forget to shoot the ball when I
Right.
was all in. I was that type of player. So I guess for me, I mean, the first coach I had instilled that defense in me, but I was lucky to have another coaching mentor as well who also instilled the defensive philosophy in me.
Right.
For me, any of my players will tell you when they play for me, then they know they got to play defense, and they know
Love that.
they know they're gonna play a high tempo style defense, and they know they're going to learn different kind of systems that we run on defense, and it depending on what level they do. And we run different tactics. And I talk a lot about like non-negotiables and what we look for and how we should move in certain scenarios and why we should move like this, and the mindset as well, which I think really really helps. It's looking about the defensive mindset when you kind of get into an activity as well.
Right.
And I think I'm so passionate about teaching it that it sort of rubs off on my players, and they end up saying we absolutely love playing defense, and that's
Nice. That's big. Exactly. Exactly. That is super rare.
yeah.
Wow. I see this with that as well. Like I think it's really cool what we do. I say that because it's again, I could just tell you love the game, coach, and you're constantly, yes, you're a coach, but you are still very much a student. And even for me, when I started back in 2008, when you're kind of a young coach, you're just copying, mimicking what your coach does with regards to mannerisms, drills, areas of emphasis. And then as you kind of go to coaching clinics or you get exposed to other styles of coaching, you kind of start to form a coaching philosophy that relates to you. And, something that we both share, which I absolutely love, is, your coaching philosophy is built around CLA, which is kind of the constraints led approach, which I absolutely love, by the way. I'm still experimenting certain aspects of it, but I'm all in. You know, what I mean, shout out to Coach Alex and because just what
Yeah.
he's doing and just how he's teaching it. Absolutely, and just the evidence that he's got on it is just amazing, and you immediately see um the results with the players that you engage with. So for yourself, can you break down how these methods work and why you're so passionate about it?
So I originally started with the traditional coaching method,
Yeah.
like any other coach kind of does, because I wasn't aware of it. So I started off with that, and it's the same as what you said. I mimicked my coach. I
Yes.
copied him, and I sort of found amalgamation of me, and along the way as I learnt more, um, I got into the games approach when I went to university, which was the first step for me, really. Uh,
Okay.
and I learned about it there, and I thought this makes so much sense in how we play games. And I had a second coach as well who used to play a lot of motion offenses, and used to do a lot of guided learning stuff and ask a lot of questions. And he said he'd seen top European teams do this at clinics and stuff like that. And it was more about the IQ and the mindset with him. So it made sense to me. And I thought, "Do you know what? Most people have fun and learn whilst they're playing games."
So true.
And I thought, when the brain is engaged the most, that is when truly players learn. And anyone learns really. Because I feel like you can retain more stuff when you're calm, you're having fun, and you're enjoying it. And so I picked up the gains approach. I tried it out with my Kiel University team for the first time in my second year. Some of the girls that I had were coached under a traditionalist system,
Hmm.
and they were like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've had the same response. Yeah.
They were like, "Why are you making us talk and you giving us points when we say the correct things on defense? What
Right.
is this?" Because I used to do like a defense wins game, but my
Yes.
progression was I'd do like a third progression and I'd make them talk and say the relevant things because I believed whatever you wanted to build as a habit as a coach has got to be practiced. So I usually do that as a little bit of fun and to get people out their shells and build confidence as well. And it ended up with me having probably one of the best talking teams in the league just off doing that silly little activity.
Yeah.
Um, and I tried it out. I still had a little bit of traditional stuff in there because I was testing it like yourself. And some of the girls months later were like really enjoying it, and they were winning games, and they couldn't really believe it because they'd been
Right.
coached in a traditional way, and they believed that the blueprint to win was just in a traditional way, and they believed that you couldn't have fun and you had to take it super serious to be able
Right.
to develop like the tactics, the skills, and obviously the techniques. And so when I was running the game stuff, they were absolutely loving it, and I got really good numbers as well. And
Nice.
I kind of, after that year of coaching it for the first time, I kind of had a few messages off the players who were leaving, who were graduating. And one of them said, "I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done. Um, I was going to drop out of basketball because I had a bad time with other traditional coaches, and they took the passion out of me. But the way you coach and the way you've been with this team this year, I've been the best experience I've ever had in basketball. And the reason why I've stayed and the reason why we've been so successful was all because of you. And I just want to truly thank you." And
Honestly, man,
I mean, that really
that's
touches my
about
heart, to be honest with you. So
yeah,
if
of
it go the
course.
best ever feedback I've ever had, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
it made me realize like I need to go all in on this. I really need to go all in on this. So I
Yeah.
asked the books.
Right.
I hit the books
Right.
and I just hit YouTube and was just like, I need to find everything I can and eat the
Yeah.
sandwich right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is like something that I'm even just starting to implement. Like, well, first off, again, coach, you're doing such an amazing job, man. I mean, for your players to come back and just really express the gratitude, but the impacts that you've had, not just on basketball, but on their life, that's like the biggest trophy you could hold up. You know what I mean? So honestly,
His skill was a university student as well, so you don't really feel like you can have an impact on that age, do you? Really? So
that's true. Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
the most surprising thing for me.
Right. Right. And just like you've kind of you've spoken about using basketball as as a vehicle to teach life skills. So what are would you say some of the most important life lessons you try to impart to your players?
So I have a thing that I teach. It's called Find Your Edge, and
Mm.
finding your edge for me is about if you look around you, you can have you can have a player of the same height, the same weight, the same skill set, and that maybe the same stats.
Right.
When you match up against that player, whether he's your teammate or whether he's your opponent, you've got to think how you are going to separate yourself to win. I use I say to players, you've got to be able to contribute in a different way, and you've got to find your edge. And
Right.
whether it's a case of you outworking that player behind closed doors, or drinking 200 to 500 milliliters more of water before the game, or doing something so small that you kind of get a 1% edge, then you need to find that, and I'll help you find that. And the reason why I say this is because I apply it to life. When you go to school, you get the same qualifications as everyone else, and you come out, you go college, you go uni, you do whatever.
Right.
You get the same qualifications as everyone else. There's thousands and thousands of people in the UK who are doing similar stuff to what you are.
True.
You are all, if you all apply for the same job, they're going to look at the edge on your CV. The edge on your CV is what you've done besides that. And
I'm following you. Yeah.
you follow me. So it could be work experience. It could be you've done a CPD course on LinkedIn. It could be you've messaged somebody before the interview. And there's various other things you can do to find that edge. And
Right.
this is my mindset as a coach, and it's my mindset in life. I think I'm on a small island of basketball. What can I do as a coach to find my edge to be able to impact more players?
Right.
And I've been able to kind of separate myself from others because I've delivered something a little bit different and I've gone the extra mile with different things, which has allowed me to be in many circles from some of the top coaches in the world and be able to learn from them. So
Yeah.
I try and
Yeah.
teach that to my players, and I think that's one of the most important things to me, because I don't really feel that they get that talk in school, in high school,
Yeah.
they get that talk in college, or
Right.
when they do get that talk, they're taught to a traditional career path route where it's get your qualification, get a little bit of experience, apply for a job, and then you'll be successful. And sometimes it can work out like that. But as me and you know, as older people, that's not how the game works.
So true. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
I try and teach them this, like, and I be very realistic with them, and they know whenever they step on the court, they know I'm a realistic guy, and I have that relationship where I can turn around and say to a player, you did really bad today, but this, and this good, and I want you to work on this. And they'll automatically respect it because they know it's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, man.
Say that as the biggest thing, really, for me.
Yeah.
Finding your edge.
Yes. Yeah, that is big time, man. And you just even mentioned it there, like just from the experience that you have, coach, you've probably seen good players, great players, the players that are in between, and you've probably been able to identify like those traits. So for yourself, Coach Stevie, like what separates the good players from great players in your opinion? And how do you cultivate those traits in your athletes?
Oh, that's a difficult question, but I like it because it's challenging. So the first part of the question, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial here.
I love it. I love it.
So I think that good players have been through shit,
Absolutely.
and what I mean by that is they've been through adversity at a young age. Whether that's they've had to run a million suicides every training session, or
Right.
they've had a tough family life, or something's happened when they were a child, they got bullied, they this and that, blah, 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 then I always kind of get that type of player. And I find that player will go the extra mile. So I think what builds good players is adversity. And we're not allowed to kind of do that in the UK. So, to a certain extent, we're not allowed to do press ups. We're not allowed to shout at somebody. We're not allowed to make a joke or whatever. And I was coached like that growing up. Now, I do follow the CLA approach, and the CLA approach teaches more holistic approach and
Yes.
do then things, and there is better ways. And I agree to a certain extent. So the extent I agree on is I do believe you should build a relationship with a player.
Right.
And I do believe that that should be solid and you should put that first, definitely. And I do believe you shouldn't talk about inappropriate things, etc., blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But when it comes to unlocking humans and getting the best out of them, you got to think there's two types of leadership. There's leading through fear and leading through love.
Mm.
So
Okay.
I think, okay, then you build a relationship with your players. They know you've got love for them. That can unlock them. Sometimes you can turn around to a player and say, do you know what? It's okay. You're having a bad day, this and that. The shot didn't go in. You'll get it next time. Yeah. And that player will go out there and shoot that shot and feel better about themselves. No problem. But then when it comes to taking them to a next level, it's like, how do you get them to run faster? How do you get them to work harder? This and that.
Yeah.
Now, the CLA is great because you can put time constraints on this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I only kind of discipline players when they're messing around and they lose engagement.
Right.
Or let's say, like, they're having a fight or whatever for some reason. They're
Yeah.
not serious about it. But I believe some of the hard coaching is needed to truly unlock a player.
Right.
And I say that because I was obviously raised through that hard coaching myself. But I believe to be able to push past your potential, I feel like there is an element of fear that's got to be introduced, or an element of not just fear, accountability. Should
Yes. I like that. I like that.
I see a lot of the Americans do it in their style of coaching. The Europeans do it as well, and it's worked for them for many, many years. And that's not to say, obviously, one size fits all.
Right.
But I truly believe a little bit of hard coaching, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it if your intention is to unlock that player's ability.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that, man. And even just on the accountability, I love that, man. And especially when, like, one thing for me that I love is just getting athletes to recognize the account, like the
Athletes.
yeah, no problem. I make sure that athletes hold themselves accountable, making
Yeah.
sure they're making those adjustments when they make a mistake, but also highlighting when a teammate is doing something wrong. Don't shout at them, like hold them
Yeah.
accountable, but also
Go
the
play the
teammate.
game.
Exactly, exactly. And just, I'm really getting the athletes to understand that when a team is quote unquote getting on you, it's with love. It's
Yeah.
because they want you to do better. They know that you usually make that shot when you're, let's say, ready to shoot before the ball is in your hands. You missed that shot because you wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I'm getting on you because I want to see you do better. Because you have to think, as a teammate or just life in general, if I'm not giving you feedback just as a human being, I want to see you fail, so therefore I'm your enemy. So it's just I absolutely love that approach, and even just with yourself, Coach Stevie, like how do you balance, you know, uh, creating fun, engaging in environment with pushing players to improve and reach their potential?
I knew that question was coming. So for me, it's the relationship first. Before I hard coach a player, I'll always build a relationship with them. And I learned an absolutely great thing when I went to see John Amici at the clinic.
Nice.
And he said he was talking about relationship building with players and the psychology of it
Okay.
and practical things you can do. And he spoke about turning up early and having a conversation about a player's day. And he said, connect with one different player every session.
Mm.
So I do that, and I've been doing it for many, many years because I find it a really important part of the process of as a coach. So I'll turn up and I'll make small talk. And weirdly enough, I wasn't really I was kind of an introverted person, so I was really bad at small talk. But because I wanted to obviously get better as a coach,
Right.
I decided to read a book about it. I decided to read a book about how you can make more small talk. So I read the book, I implemented it with some of my players, I try it out, and I just built a relationship. And then I think after the relationship is you truly get to know how a player can comprehend certain things
Right.
when you teach it. And the players who have been there longer than the newer players, my expectations for them that I say at the beginning of the season is you guys teach first. You guys teach first because you know the system, and
Hmm.
I'm the last person to teach.
So
So I give them the responsibility to teach certain concepts or to reinforce certain concepts
I like
because
that. Yeah.
I know that player has got that concept. And the reason why I do that is because number one, it builds a relationship with the new players coming in because they
Yes.
feel
Yeah.
counted and they feel a sense of community.
Smart.
Number two, I do that because it's actually helping develop leadership skills with my senior players.
Yes.
Number three, it's secretly because I want them all to become coaches.
Right. Love that.
And number four, it's because when you teach somebody something, you reinforce what you've learned.
That coach, that is man, I love this conversation honestly because I there was the coach for oh goodness, what was the name of the women's coach? But there was a coach for a huge women's basketball program, and she was saying exactly what you were saying, coach, which is so powerful with regards to she was telling a big, you are our defensive anchor, so communicate to your teammates how to rotate, what the coverage is, because by you teaching that, you're working on leadership, but without you realizing you are retaining that information and you're kind of understanding it even more on a deeper level. So well said, coach. I love that.
Literally, like, and the reason why I do it is because I love to see a culture of learning and development.
Yes.
And I believe coaches talk about it a lot, but that's the way that I found of how to implement it. And you know what? If my seniors ain't doing it, then I'm getting onto them.
Right.
And
Right.
if I don't see them doing it and somebody's struggling, I'll say, yo, Kyle, this guy's struggling. You should be teaching him this.
Right.
And they'll be like, sorry, coach, this and that, I forgot, or blah, blah, blah. But I'll reinforce it and give friendly reminders about it.
Mhm.
And then if they're not doing it, then I'll just keep kind of getting onto them. And I've found over the years it's created like that really that learning and development culture. And I absolutely love it because I believe everyone should be a student of the game,
Yes.
and they should want to learn, because the more they learn, the more successful they're going to be in whatever they want to achieve on the court. And
Right.
also they're going to be more successful in life, because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, and how you apply it as well.
Big time.
It was really good. And the more you learn, essentially, the more you earn.
Right. That is true.
So
That
I
is
try and develop that sort of growth mindset within players, and that's how I implement it. I don't always capture everyone, of course,
yeah.
but if I was to put it into a framework, they are the kind of things I do when I set out the expectations, and I get certain people to be leaders and stuff like that, and teach it. So yeah, I'd say that's what I do really.
Right. And even just as we're speaking on player development, there are sometimes, I mean, especially in the UK, sometimes you might have a hour session, hour and a half, 2 hours. Sometimes you might have only half an hour with that team or that play, because, basketball in the UK, it is getting better, but you're sharing it with badminton, football, kids' birthdays sometimes. Like it can be anything, So our time is limited on the court. So, as we speak about player development, you emphasize, game transfer training for players with limited time, which I absolutely love. So can you explain this concept and its importance?
Yeah, so the the way I came up with it is I've always been a coach that's had limited time with players. I've had
Mhm.
1 hour a week, 2 hours a week max, and I'm lucky enough over the past 2 years to have like 8 hours a week with my academy.
Nice.
So I've been able to develop players who have gone on to play National League, because
Nice.
a lot of the stuff I do is local league. I've been able to develop some players that have gone on to play West Midlands League, and some players who've gone on to play professional as well. And what I've what I kind of figured out is I kind of had conversations with coaches, high level coaches from pro teams and national league teams.
Right.
And I figured out patterns of what coaches want. So I thought, okay, then this coach wants this and this coach wants the same, and they're all kind of saying the same thing and what is
Yeah.
it. So I thought, okay, then let's teach these players these certain things, and let's simplify everything. Don't go too much into the tactics. Simplify it. Use triggers.
Yes.
Obviously, how to play out of the triggers, and the skills that are required in the modern game and what coaches are looking for are basically, people want people to be able to shoot the ball. It's as simple as that. People want people to be able to play defense. People want high IQ players to be able to make the correct reads. And that's literally it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's literally it for me.
In a nutshell, exactly.
If you were to say if you were to say take 1 hour of my session, Stevie, these are the three things that I'd run. And the way I think of it in a session is if I had a team, I think I break it down into phases of the game.
Okay.
So I teach. So I think, okay, what's the first phase of the game? It's off the rebound. Like you start off the rebound because I always start with the defense, obviously.
Yeah.
So I teach you start off the rebound. Then I teach offense. You you go to transition from the rebound. Then I teach you go to half court from transition, and then it's you go back to half court defense. So if you think about the way the game is played,
Yeah.
that's basically the framework
Right.
that kind of I stick to, and
Right.
plan every one of my sessions like that.
Nice.
And it's the easiest way to plan a session because you can just reverse engineer everything that you need,
Right.
and it simplifies everything. And you know what? I'm a big believer in simplistic coaching
Absolutely.
because I believe coaches talk too much. Number one,
Yep.
I fall deep for that
Yeah.
myself.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, myself. I fall deep for that. And the other thing is you've got to always question yourself: are players learning when you're talking, or are you just talking? So I always think about that when I kind of do long demonstrations, and I look at the activity and I think, has this just transferred what I've just said? And then I think one or two things. I think, could I have done a better explanation? Could I have done a better demonstration? Uh, do I need to change the activity
Yeah.
or simplify the activity?
Yeah.
So they are the kind of three things I think about. And it, for me, this is the way I learn. I learn in a very simplistic way. So I teach in a very simplistic way as well. And when I notice that people are getting the objective that I want to kind of teach in my head, then I'll start loading. I'll stack. I'll stack
Yes.
more information,
Yeah.
and I'll use what Alex calls as obviously stacking.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll keep doing that. And then when I feel like players are getting it linearly, I'll completely flip it on its head. And I'll take more pressure on, and I'll put like a time constraint, or I'll put some crazy rule on it, and players are like, what the hell? And when I see people get confused, that's when I know the cogs are turning.
Right. Here we go.
Because I believe the learning comes from confusion and figuring it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll do my best to sometimes confuse people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe you've got to challenge the brain at all times as well as the physical side.
Right. I see. You even just mentioned something that I am guilty of as well in the past, and even to a certain extent now, but I'm a little bit more aware of it, is just talking too much and just giving things in sound bites. It could be a clear example of, when I'm doing a timeout in the past, I would talk about, okay, we are allowing them to get to the middle. We're not on the helpline. We should be blitzing what we're heading. Da, 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 da. I've already given the team 10 things. So by the time timeout is done, they haven't retained one thing. Whereas now it's just soundbite focusing on these three things.
Yeah.
That is it. And even just when I'm coaching, kind of just with regards to teaching decision making and basketball IQ, I like to, not all the time, but at times I'll turn it into a conversation. It could be something like, we're playing a 2v1 small sided game, and I ask the defender when they make a mistake, okay, like when you went up high, what happened? Oh, they just passed the ball and scored. So what could have been better? And sometimes they don't even come to the answer straight away, but I kind of probe them, go, okay, so if you was, rather than going all the way out, if you slid in the paint, what do you think could have happened?
Yeah.
they would have not been able to pass. Cool. And then when they pass, who was the threat? Okay, the person with the ball. And you can kind of see them starting to
Yeah.
understand the game. So
I've
when it
know that
comes to
magic
like
happens, Coach D.
exactly, exactly. And when it comes to just like helping players develop basketball IQ and even just like you said, like adaptability through small sided games, like what are some of the things or how do you approach basketball IQ and adaptability through situational drills or even just small sided games?
Fantastic. So, first of all, because my philosophy is defense,
Yes.
I'm going to tell you about a defensive game I stick to religiously.
Love this.
And
Love this.
it's been a game that has stuck with me since my Kiel days, which is it's around about 9 years ago now. So I
Okay.
gained through that, and I've used it ever since. And it's called defense wins.
Mm.
And if I was to package it, I would say it's how you get your team loving defense. Um, and basically, what you do is you set up a scenario. Let's say, for example, you want to practice your full court press.
Okay.
You play 5v5, and then you can start from the sideline inbound, or you can start from the baseline inbound. It's up to you, whatever scenario you want to work on, or you can change it. And what you do is whatever habits or whatever rotations you want your players to learn, you give them a point system.
Mm. Okay.
So, for example, I do a little bit of like you could kind of call it a conceptual defense, where we do like a jump switch full court press.
Okay.
And I teach something called jump switching moments. So jump switching moments are when you jump switch, when you're looking at something. And for example, if a player with the ball loses his vision, then you can jump switch on that. Or if a player with the ball picks up his dribble, that's a jump switch moment. Or if a player with the ball sort of changes direction, then they slow down, and obviously you can jump switch on that moment too. And I give them points. If they get a jump switching moment, then I give them 2 points on defense. And if they do it correctly, if the switching defender who's peel switches off correctly,
Yep.
and gets to the defender in time, or when they are peel switching, they actually deflect the pass that's probably going to get thrown over the head from the jump switcher, then they get 1 point for a deflection.
Okay.
If any of the other defenders who are off the ball get a deflection, then I'll give them 1 point for that. Or let's say they get a steal, I'll give them 1 point for that. I'm big on stealing, by the way, and I actually teach players how to steal,
Nice.
which a lot of coaches don't. I know that because they're like, it's gonna get you in foul trouble. But I
Yeah.
believe it can get you in foul trouble. But if you teach it, then it's a better gamble, and
Right.
you can do it. So that defense wins game. I play it like that. And I'll also play it in the half court as well because I run a pack line defense.
Okay.
So I'll play it in different scenarios when I'm teaching different defenses, whether it be zone, whether it be man, whether it be full court. And the players on offense, if they score, they get to go to defense.
Mm.
The only way you can win is basically by playing defense.
Nice.
That's the
That's a great flip. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
You could shape it in however way you want to teach the tactics and the techniques you want within your defense. And that's sort of a games approach thing I developed before I knew about CLA. And
Right.
I attribute that as the biggest reason of why I won the league with Kiel in the way that I did, because we were the best defensive team in the league. And I attribute that one activity. And if I could say to any coach, use an activity, I'd say use the defense wins game.
when you're teaching your defense. But you've got to really kind of think it out and think, okay, then what do I want to teach and how do I want to do my scoring systems and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
a very analytical game to think about, but I'd try it out, man. Honestly, it's been really successful for me, and it still is.
I love that. It's just something that I just love about you, coach, honestly, is that again, when we are in a day and age where all you see on highlights is the dunk, the crazy combination step back three or the Euro step. It's very heavily offensive based, which don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of as well because that's what drew me to the game of basketball. But again, when you're being a student, you look at the the full picture in terms of how does that player or team contribute or work together, what reads, what pass, what defense, and even just for you speaking on defense. For me, to be honest, I mean, me being a guard, like for me, when I was playing in most of my teams, I was a shooting guard. So even as a coach in my early years, all I cared about was shooting, catch and shoot through you, how to get open, how to come off a screen, how to read your reads. And yeah, yeah, something like that, you know. But like it was shout out to Coach Mac when he was my assistant coach for the London Regionals, and he told me the no middle defense. And to me, before then I never heard no middle. It was just stay in between your ball player. This is the coverage for ball, this is the coverage for deny and help. But with the no middle, that was like a moment because it was like it makes so much sense. And if you can get a team to buy into that system, like it can work wonders. And then that kind of opened up the door for me to find out more about defense and blitz and hedge and ice and next defense and help and the rotations. And it just opened up my mind to the fact that you're just teaching, you're even starting certain drills with defense. Those players aren't, they might not realize it now, but they have a huge competitive edge because you have some teams or players who put all the energy on offense. We've seen a coach where they've got all the energy on offense, and when it comes to defense, they kind of just rotate and lay, or they're not even taught how to play defense. So I just love the fact that you instill a love for defense in your players, man. I absolutely love that.
It's basically I took my college academy team to the AFC regionals, and
It's amazing.
we're just an unknown academy. Like we're not known in the basketball world whatsoever. Stoke-on-Trent are, and we played the first game against some really strong teams. I mean, there was Dudley there. There was like COB Rockets there,
Mhm.
and there was some other really strong teams who were like one or two divisions higher than us.
Wow.
All we did is put on our wolf press, which I got from Coach Rob. When I went out to Vietnam, actually, we had a conversation about it, and I thought,
It's amazing.
absolutely taking this. So
Right.
shout out to Coach Rob with the side.
Yeah, Coach Rov.
Um, so he gave me that, and I implemented it straight away. I thought this is going to be an edge that I need for the regionals, and within one session they picked it up really quick, and we ran it at the regionals, and it's basically just like two people at the top running man principles, two people in the half court running zone principles, and one person at the back running like man principles as their input.
Nice.
Here, it totally stuffed everyone's head up, and we we ended up beating teams that were two, two, 2 to 3 divisions higher than us, just off playing pure defense and stealing the ball off people and deflecting it and trapping them. And the people on the sidelines could not believe it. They were
Yeah.
like, "Where the hell have these guys come from?" And everybody was showing love as well. Like they were all coming
Nice.
up to us, high fiving us, spudding us, showing love. And I was like, "This is." And I said to my team, "Look, this is the potential you have got.
Yeah, man.
Like you're not just playing in a small men's league now. You're playing
Right.
teams 2 to 3 divisions higher, and you're winning them." And we got to the finals. We played against Dudley's first team. And unfortunately we weren't able to take it. But in my mind, I think if the games would have ran for longer, I think we would have had a good shot. But we played some of the best players, and like I say, they were 2 divisions higher than us.
Yeah.
We got to the final, and that was the first time the college had done that in 10 years.
That's incredible, man.
And it was incredible to see. And I didn't expect it, Coach D. I'm not going to lie. Honestly, I knew my players' potentials and I knew the team, but I really didn't expect it. And they are some players who have been with me for around about 3.5 years and like have gone on to play for the college that I coach in.
Wow.
So it was really good to see because I've known some of these lads since they were like 13, 14 years old.
It's incredible, man.
Just amazing. Like it makes me feel old, but it's really rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
just
It is about defense, honestly. I keep telling coaches about the defense.
yeah,
Don't worry about the
Well,
ball going in the hoop. Let's just steal it and run.
right. And like, how would you say, like, what's your approach to helping players grow their confidence, like, especially when they're coming from a tough coaching experience?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would say building that relationship with them first, getting to know like who they are deep down, what type of person they are, what their beliefs are, what the kind of philosophies are, what the world views are, and what their opinion is on things. And I'll have regular conversations with all of my players and just kind of check in on them. And if they're looking a bit down, I recognize that and I'll say, is everything okay? And I think building the confidence, it takes belief.
Yeah,
I think you know when you have that one person in your life who says, I believe you can do anything. And you're just like, you know what? I actually can.
yeah,
Believe like I had that from my second coach. And that was the first time anyone had ever said to me, I believe you can become a coach and be successful from it. And I'll put your name down on a betting slip that you're going to coach for GB one day. And I was like, this guy's crazy. Absolute crazy. But he believed in me and he was relentless about it. And like, I obviously went on to coach for GB Maxi program as well.
yes, yes,
I was
absolutely.
in coach for them. So I've represented my country and it seemed a dream at the time. That was impossible. But I believe that confidence comes from just that one person believing in you. The other place where it comes from is it comes from success.
Mhm.
And success can be success in the skill that you're performing. I mean, it can be success in the way you contribute. And I say that because don't just talk about getting the shot in. I talk about obviously on the defensive end as well. I also talk about bench.
Okay.
I was a bench player and I'm going to admit it. I spent most of my time on the bench, which is why one of the reasons why I'm a successful coach, because I had a lot of time to study the game, of course. I talk about how you act on the bench and I talk about energy givers and energy takers. Well, my energy giver is whenever you get subbed out, how do you respond? I talk about that with my players. What's your body language like? Do you recognize that you got subbed out because it's part of the tactics? Or do you think you got subbed out because you did something negative? And do you see subbing out as an opportunity to reflect on what you've just experienced so you can go on and get better and make the team better? Or do you see getting subbed out as a reflection of something you didn't do?
Mm.
And I say you should see it as the first one, really.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because if you're a student of the game, you've got to be constantly reflecting in action and out of action to get yourself better, and you've got to be constantly problem solving. So
Also an energy giver is I watched a great video on touch, like high fives and stuff like that. And I saw that most of the championship teams had the most high fives and had the most fist bumps and had the most kind of just general touches.
Yeah.
I talk about that as an energy giver. I say whenever we sub out, we have to dap each other up. So we always make sure we give finger taps, we give fist bumps, etc. And I always make sure I dap everybody up coming out and give them some positive words, mainly about their effort. So we do that. And I always make sure they do it when they come into training. So I watched a really good clinic. I think it was from Jackson Gibbons is his name.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so he talked about the culture he built in his program, and I found it absolutely amazing. And he spoke about like he'll always make players come in and speak to each other and shake each other's hands. And everywhere that his team went, they always kind of left a really good impression because they'd always come in, speak to the officials, they'd speak to the other team, they'd shake their hands, they'd be very respectful. And I absolutely love that. It really resonated with me. So I make sure, as an energy giver, everybody has to come in and has to shake hands and greet each other.
Nice.
And I think, going back to confidence, connection and community gives you confidence as well.
Yeah.
When you got your squad behind you and you're in a tough moment, that's when you know you can go slow.
Right.
That is when the hashtag squad goals really becomes true. When
Absolutely.
you got your squad behind you. So that's another thing I think can give you confidence as well. You can have confidence in yourself, and obviously you can give energy and have belief and confidence in others as well. Because I believe like the way you communicate is important, and that's why when we spoke about accountability, I believe the way you communicate is important too. Now, I'm not saying everybody be a primary school teacher in the way everybody talks to each other. I'm not saying that,
Right.
but I'm saying choose your words carefully
Yeah.
because it's got to be constructive criticism and it's got to be objective. And make sure you're always dapping each other up. So, do you know if a player gets heated off somebody's feedback? Like if you spud somebody, you know you've still got love for somebody, or if you're high-fiving somebody on the way back because they just made a good play, then you stay together. And I believe
That's true.
teams that stay together play together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of a lot of confidence comes from like connection, belief, and success, really, and that can obviously break down multiple stems. But I'm a big believer in community, and obviously like believing in each other and stuff like that, and having that mindset to kind of do it. So
Right. I love that, man. And you even just like mentioned something which I think is so huge and just honestly such a honor to be able to be in that position. I mean, representing GB as an assistant coach, like, must have been such a proud moment. So, can you kind of share what that experience meant to you?
Yeah, so I was shocked. I'm not gonna lie. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, shout out to Stephen Barnes, for obviously accepting me as an assistant coach for the Maxi 45s. I thought, Luke, I'm gonna have a really tough time. I mean, when I turned up to the first session, I had players who had played on scholarships for NCAA Division One programs back in the day. I'd had players who had represented Scotland, represented England, represented Ireland, and played like in professional leagues for many, many years. And I thought, why the hell are these guys going to listen to me? We've just done way more than I could ever done. So
Right. Right.
I figured, you know what? I'll take the advice of my mum. Just be yourself.
Love that.
Just be yourself. So
Yeah.
I was myself, and I found it challenging at first. But I just focused on relationship first, like I always focus on, and getting to know the players and sort of seeing where they're at really and what their expectations were for the program. And like I learned obviously the style of my coach and what he coached, and I was obviously learning how I could fit in and how I could contribute. Um, because I'd always been thrown in like head coaching roles when I was in Stoke. So I kind of really struggled with being an assistant. I knew what to do to a certain extent, but I kind of felt like out of place because the main teaching part wasn't all up to me, if that makes sense. I Head coach was absolutely great. I mean, shout out to Stephen Barnes. We had a really good time in Italy, and I learned a lot from him. And the way he thinks, you can truly tell why he's coached GB many of times, uh, and how he's been able to impact so many players in Birmingham through his club, obviously be met. Um, so I guess for me, the pride that I felt was just next to none. I'd never felt that, and I think the only time I'd felt greater pride was when when my daughter was born.
Well, love that.
I think that's the only time I felt greater pride other than representing my country. And obviously, people know that the GB Maxi program is self-funded as well, so it's going to be crazy me saying this, but I took a gamble. So my wife was pregnant at the time,
Okay.
and my baby's birth date was 2 weeks after we were going to the final tournament in Italy.
Wow. Okay.
So
Okay.
me and my wife had very, very strong talks about this, and although she was supportive, she was scared at the same time because I
Of
was
course.
here
Of
around.
course.
We live next to her family. My family's obviously in Stoke as well. She had family surrounding her, but she knew for me it was something I had to do. And she realized how great of a feat it actually was and how many years I'd been working for something like this. I mean, I've been a coach for 18 years now.
It's incredible, man.
And I'm not like a well-known coach within the whole spectrum of basketball because I've only coached National League a couple of times, and
Right.
I just more passionate about coaching local league stuff really, and obviously doing my own club and stuff like that. Um, so for me, she knew how big it was in comparison to what I was doing, and she knew how much it would cost and this and that, blah, blah, blah. So I set up a GoFundMe page, and I kid you not, the people of Stoke-on-Trent, the community, a lot of them donated to my GoFundMe page.
Love that, man. Community, so big.
Honestly, like it was outstanding to see the community support that I got. And it was just really, really good. It really touched my heart, to be honest with you. Shout out to the people of Stoke-on-Trent.
Absolutely,
Always.
man. Shout out Stoke. Yeah.
Always. And that's truly why I came back to my city, and I realized who I was as a coach when I'd come back from traveling abroad. I realized that I didn't really get as much enjoyment coaching abroad as I did coaching the people in my area. And
Okay.
the reason being is because I coach them from a young age and I get to see them grow up. And for me, seeing that journey and seeing that development was more beautiful than anything for me, coach. So I believed that I needed to come back from obviously traveling and coaching abroad, and I wanted to make an impact here and become a pioneer of basketball, and that's exactly what I've done. I've been able, with the help of the great community around me, and the people working tirelessly in the background, because there's loads of very passionate people in Stoke-on-Trent about basketball, and these are the guys who I run with,
And without these guys, like basketball wouldn't be possible in Stoke-on-Trent. And so I truly believe that representing my country it was just phenomenal. And the experience I got was like a total 360 than what I'm doing at the moment.
Right.
So I guess for my personal growth, it was really, really good because I learned how to adapt in different situations. I learned how to contribute and find my edge when it came to me being an assistant to the head coach. And I learned how to get buy-in from high-level players who were much older than me and
Right.
who'd done much more than me. And obviously sort of the dynamic as well of the other coaches and sort of finding out how the institute works and stuff like that. And it was just great to connect with all the other coaches. I mean, I connect with so many great coaches whilst I was there, and even coaches who were from other countries as well, who were coming from their teams, and the experience was an elite experience that I never would have got, to be honest with you, if I wasn't in the right place at the right time. And the reason why I got the role is I had a conversation. I actually needed to cancel a referee for one of my club games,
Okay.
and basically was having a conversation with one of the refs about my academy for some reason, and he was like, "My assistant coach has just dropped out because he's having ankle surgery. Have you ever thought about trying out for the GB Maxi program?" I was like, "What?"
I was like, this guy can't be serious. If this is scammer, is he going to take like a £500 payment off me? Read your application. Submit it to the Stripe.
Oh my God.
And luckily, I knew. Obviously, I'd met the guy before. I'd met Stephen Barnes before, and I knew it was the correct accounts and stuff. And he just said to me, "What are you doing this week?" And I was like, "Well, I'm coaching on the weekends." And he was like, "Come up this weekend and try out." I was like, "Okay, I've got to get another coach now to stand in. I'm not coaching this weekend."
Right.
Yeah, so I just went up there. I tried out, did the best I could do, recorded lots of stuff, did some editing, broke down a video, did some the plays, just got to know the players, etc.
Yeah.
Within 3 days, they were like, "Yeah, you're in." And I was like,
Wow.
"Wow, okay, cool." You like to loads of camps and stuff like that, and I got the opportunity to go to the Caledonia Gladiators Stadium.
Wow. What was that like?
Oh, mate, I kid you not, we did a training camp there with the Nazi program.
Sensation.
Mate, I felt like I was in the NBA.
I mean, it looks amazing.
It isn't easy. Literally, like, we went up there. We got obviously like a hotel. Me and Stephen did, and we drove to the stadium in the morning. We pulled up. There was like kind of some double doors that you go into, and it is
Okay.
a really short corridor. And then you open up some other double doors, and you walk into like you have like a training
Okay.
court. So they had a training court there, and they had like their main court, which was behind a curtain, because they didn't obviously use the main court to train because they didn't to get dirty and the stands were there and everything like that. So they had that. They had a shed load of balls, and they had like I think it was like a gym upstairs, and they had like some ice packs and stuff like that, and
That's
they had
crazy.
like a a room with like a tactics board in, and they had like a physio room as well in the training facility. And
So dope.
the Caledonia Gladiators logo was in the middle, and it's a
Yeah.
sound shook, honestly.
like training at a BBL standard venue.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, I was starstruck, and it just felt premium. You know, when you walk into somewhere and you just know you're in an elite place,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
yeah, and it just felt really premium, and I loved every moment of it, to be honest with you, and
Right.
yeah, it was super good. I enjoyed the experience, and I'd recommend any coach who wants to develop their craft for elite performance to go and try out the GB Maxi program. It's a really, really good program. They do run another program as well. The GB Fimba do as well.
Right.
Fimba's a good program too. And I'd say it gives any coach an opportunity to learn elite level coaching from some of the best coaches in the game. I mean, you've got the likes of like Liam Jefferson coaching at the GB Maxi. I was there, and you've got the likes of obviously Jesse coaching there.
Yeah.
And Stephen Bombs, like these are coaches who've got a really good reputation in basketball,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and they know a lot as well, and they're willing to teach coaches. So I was just surrounded by these people, and it, I just pick their brains often, and obviously get to know them, and it's just great being surrounded by really good coaches, and
Right.
you come to realize why they are so great, because they think in a different way, and like they're knowledgeable, and they can challenge your thought. And again, for me, it was just a learning environment, and
Right.
that's truly what I went for, to elevate myself,
Right.
find out what everybody's secret sauce was.
See, and
Yeah.
like it's I just love that, man. I mean, the fact that you even went to the Caledonia Gladiators court, I mean, it's just like that is as premium as it gets, man. And may more courts like that and may teams get that in the future, man. And just kind of, as we're in the fourth quarter of the podcast now, and just before we wrap up, like just with regards to basketball in the UK. And don't get me wrong, it's growing, which I'm super excited, especially for me. Starting in 2008 to now, I'm seeing much more local league, national league. The platforms are starting to grow as well. But obviously, UK basketball isn't as developed as in other countries. So, what do you think needs to change to grow the game here?
Oh, we could be on this for a while. So, first things first, we clearly need an injection of funding.
Yep.
And that's not based upon our Olympic results. That's just above our participation levels.
Right.
And that's me speaking as an academic who's read the papers and stuff about sports development.
Right.
Second thing is, we need a better quality of coaches. And what I would do, I'm not super educated about it, but I've seen what goes on. I would give coaches maybe like a yearly test. Say to them, you've got to do some type of CPD for you to be able to keep your coaching license, which is something they do in Canada and they do in various other countries for you to be able to keep your license.
Okay.
For me, what you've got to think about is coaching is a profession, and I know a lot of people do it voluntary. I get that. But for me, it's a profession because you're dealing with people's psyche,
True.
and you're also dealing with the physical side as well. So, and you develop people. So like, it's kind of like a doctor for me. Like, to keep your doctor's license and for you to keep your teaching license, you have to do a certain amount of CPD hours.
Right.
And I think until this country starts to take it seriously like that, and obviously like they implement a system of continuous education, then the coaching will get better naturally, organically. But I believe we need some type of way to hold coaches accountable, and to say, look, you're not just learning what you've learned as a player, and passing it on. You've got to go beyond that.
Yeah.
You've got to go beyond that, not just for you, but for your players. If you stand on a court and you're talking about learning, development, this and that, and you don't do that as a coach, that's a mockery for me.
Yeah.
That is an absolute mockery, because that shows to me that you just do it for the weekend, and that's fine because you're contributing to the game. But if you do it for the weekend, then don't talk about learning and development,
Right.
and just accept that. And the other thing is, if you are just doing it for the weekend and doing it on a voluntary basis, yes, it's absolutely great because that does help to grow the game. But I still think people who do it for the weekend, they still should have to do some kind of CPD to keep their license, because I believe they help the problem in growing the game,
Yeah.
but they can also hinder the problem as in growing the game.
That's true.
And that's not me being negative. That's
Yeah.
an observation I've seen, because they can help and they can hinder. And there are professional coaches who can help and hinder as well. I'm not saying it's just for the guys who do it voluntary, of course. I did it voluntary for many, many years, and I still do stuff voluntary as well, because I like to obviously contribute to the game. So I think that should happen based upon what other countries have done and it's worked for them. The other thing is the system. I think the book system in colleges and universities should be used as kind of like more of a filter to filter into like more pro teams or national league teams or etc., which they do to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I don't believe they've unlocked the true potential of AOC. I don't believe they've unlocked the true potential of EABL and CBL still, and they can connect all the dots to different academies. Because I know multiple academies and multiple colleges that are not connected to a basketball club, but they still have basketball players and basketball coaches in there.
Yeah.
I believe if we adopted kind of like an American system or a European system, then we could actually guide people from college to club more.
There we go. Yeah.
Development pathway. And it's the same with, also the problem is primary schools as well.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have enough coaches in primary schools.
Yeah.
And primary schools are very reluctant to get on board, because a lot of the times all they want to do is just tick the boxes,
True.
having a school sport premium, and they'll throw anyone in there.
Mm.
But I believe if you are to build a culture of basketball in your city, you need somebody who knows what they're doing, and you need somebody who's passionate and could pass that passion on to people. So it can have like a domino effect on your whole culture. I mean, this is how Manchester built a basketball culture.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
One guy who was really passionate about it, he'd done a lot. He'd come back from the NBA, he built his own facility, invested in the community, and it had a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
And then basketball went up and up and up and up, and the amount of players and coaches that came from that program that built their own programs were astronomical. And that's what I'm trying to do in Stoke-on-Trent. I'm trying to build, and that's why I basically am so ate up about developing coaches as well and leaders in my program, because secretly I want them to become coaches.
Yeah.
And I've already been able to do that. For example, I've been able to develop 4 coaches in 5 years for me, who still coach. And they're better coaches than me, but that's exactly what I want. I want them to be better coaches than me.
Yeah.
Because I want to do more than I could ever do. So I believe every kind of city should have that type of system. Now I know our governing body has done stuff like that to run programs in primary schools, but I don't know how successful that's been. And I'm not sure about the barriers to it, but the barriers I've had when I've tried run basketball in primary schools is either they haven't got the funding, or because it's not the most popular sport, they'll pick another sport. So it becomes more like a kind of business thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so I believe that's one of the problems as well. So I believe the system definitely needs changing from primary school, and I believe every basketball club in every city should have like an under 8 or an under 11s program in their club.
I like that, man.
Yeah, I like that's arts from the ground up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's just one thing. I'm just super fortunate. Like, the school that I work in, the head teacher is enthusiastic about PE and sports. And he even when Ofsted came, he made PE at the forefront just to kind of showcase what we do, but how important sports is. And even again, I kind of realized like after a couple of years, wait a minute, I have to realize that this isn't normal because it's evident when we go to competitions, you have like even some of the kids that I teach, I say, wait, coach, they just traveled, but they don't know, or like they don't know what a double dribble is, or because again, not every school unfortunately has the luxury of PE coaches or teachers like who even just know the game. Most of the time it's teachers teaching a sport, and if it's not a sport that they're passionate about or they don't know much about, they're going to teach it in a poor way. So therefore, it's going to trickle down to the kids not being that engaged or not even
Yeah.
understanding the game. So
You need to
well
pay.
said,
You need
coach.
to pay professionals. It's as simple as that for me.
Yeah,
You need to get
yeah,
professionals in. You need to pay them for what they do. And I'm a big believer in good basketball coaches getting paid for what they do, because at the end of the day, you do a profession, and if you invest all your time or most of your time in this, I believe that should become your job,
right,
and you should
absolutely,
you should go for it. And I don't know where the line is on that, but that's one thing I've implemented in my club. So all the qualified level 2 coaches, they get paid for what they do,
right,
and they need to stick to a certain criteria where they need to do a workshop with me or some form of CPD, or
mhm,
we pay for them to go to a clinic or something like that, and they need to do that every year to be able to keep their job for me.
right,
And that's one thing I implement as a junior director. Yeah, and like they'll agree to it, they sign up to it, and they do it every year, and they know if they have a job for me, this is the standard that you have to stick to.
absolutely, absolutely, man. And just before we wrap up, I'd like to call this the quick hitter segment. Like this first question, I'm super intrigued to get your mind on because everyone has a different interpretation on it. And for you, with this question, this could go on the path of life or the path of basketball. The first one, Coach Stevie, is a skill. What would you say, Coach Stevie, is a skill that is taught by many but only mastered by a few?
I say shooting. I say,
Okay.
do you want me to elaborate on it, or?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I say shooting because everybody kind of knows how to shoot and the techniques. But I'd say in terms of becoming the greatest shooter, it's normally the guys who are obsessed with it. And they are obsessed to the point where they'll go and watch numerous of videos of themselves shooting. They'll
Yeah,
watch the greatest shooters. They'll speak to shooting coaches. They'll hire the best. They'll go and work out with guys who can shoot better than them.
yeah,
They'll put countless of hours of reps in. Um, and they'll just work harder than anybody, and they're totally obsessed, to be honest with you. So I'd say that's something that everybody knows, but only like the greatest have truly mastered.
right. Okay. I like that one. I like that one. Next one, best piece of advice you ever received.
Um, I'd say I think it was from my mum, actually.
Mm,
When I was thinking about quitting basketball, when I was younger,
okay.
because I didn't really make the team for the first year. Um, she said to me, "Don't ever give up on something that you truly love." And the other thing she finished with is, "You're maybe not good enough yet, son." And it sounds harsh, but that from that moment, the cogs turned in my head, and which really made me realize that I actually wasn't good enough, so I needed to work harder. And that's when I really self-reflected on myself and just started to put more work in, and the result came from there. Yeah. So I'd say my mum helping me be able to self-reflect was really, really key for me to stay in the game, because if I would have dropped out as a player, I probably wouldn't have been a coach today.
See, also you kind of, I don't know if you've seen my notes, but you just touched upon the next question, which I absolutely love. You kind of have to filling filling the gap to the sentence. Sentence says, "If it wasn't for basketball, I wouldn't have learnt." Fill in the gap about yourself.
Um, to be honest with you, I feel like basketball has given me a purpose, being deeper.
Absolutely.
And the reason why I say that is because I just live for it.
Yeah.
I absolutely live for it, and I sleep, eat, and breathe it. And I've really been able to find a tool now that has allowed me to develop multiple people and impact the lives of thousands of players, and that's special for me. I,
Yeah.
for me, it's about leaving a legacy. And I always think about the day to day, what sort of legacy can I leave and how can I impact these players? And I always make sure I make it my mission to kind of be impactful wherever I go, and especially in my own city as well.
Right. Love that, man. And just the final one, what would the title of your autobiography be?
That's an easy one for me. And so I would say Finding Your Edge by Coach Stevie.
Okay. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that, man. Honestly, coach, this has been a student being in this podcast, learning from you, honestly, man, and just us bouncing off each other with ideas. I know for the listeners, for the players and the coaches, there's a lot of gems for them to take away. And just for those who would like to just follow your journey, for coaches that would like to potentially pick your brains, or even for players just to learn from you and kind of just seeing some of the stuff, where can they find you?
So I mainly operate on Instagram, and my tags is Coach Stevie Beeble. I am on TikTok too as Coach Stevie Beeble. I'm also on YouTube as Coach Stevie Beeble as well, and they are the kind of three main platforms I use. And I would say to players, look, I operate in the West Midlands. I run clinics and I run camps as well.
Yes.
So if players ever want to kind of reach out to me, or kind of want to travel and get that extra work and want to kind of learn from what I've learned, then I'd be happy to coach anybody. And
Absolutely.
just reach out to socials and we can have a conversation. And I'm also very open to give people advice over DMs as well. So yeah, reach out to me. And like I say, I just want to impact players in the UK. It's simple as.
Right. Love that. Love that. And listeners, do not worry. Those who are listening to the audio version of this on Spotify, the link will be in the description. If you are watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the description to all of the socials as well. But honestly, Coach Stevie, thank you so much, honestly, for your time. And this is myself, Coach D, and Coach Stevie signing out.